So this is an ND filter, and every filmmaker needs an ND filter. Let me show you. Let me open it and show it to you. So this is that filter which every filmmaker needs. So if you don't know what is ND filter can be considered as like sunglasses for your lenses. So it basically reduces the amount of light coming into the sensor. But why do you need that? You have aperture, you have ISO, you have shutter speed to control the amount of light entering to your sensor, right? Well, in photography that's an option, but in videography, you know that if you shoot at 24 frames per second, you need to have a shutter speed of 1/50th of a second to get that cinematic look. Now it comes down to ISO and aperture. Now most of the cameras have a lower limit of ISO at ISO 100. So you cannot go below than that. Now if you increase the f number, the bokeh you get becomes less. So what will you do in videography? If you need bokeh, you need that depth of field, you need to have ISO of 100, and you need to also have a shutter speed which is the double the frame rate. So in that case, you will need an ND filter, because if you don't use an ND filter, it will totally get overexposed and everything will be blown out. Don't worry, I'm going to show you the practical examples. I'm going to show you the video by going into the direct sunlight and show you what's the difference. Now the ND filter can be fixed and also can be variable. Fixed ND filters, you cannot change the amount of light, it's just fixed. There are 2 stops ND filter, 4 stop, 6 stop, 8 stop, 10 stops. So there are many stops ND filter, but you cannot change the stop and it's just fixed. So if you need to vary it, you need to change it, then you need to just replace the ND filter. But that can be a problem, because you know you need a 4-stop ND filter. Okay, you get a fixed ND filter, you are shooting in direct sunlight, but suddenly you go to a place, you go under the tree where there is shade, so the light becomes less, so you need to reduce the intensity of the filter. So what will you do? You don't have, will you just again change the ND filter? You will buy tons of ND filters at different stops? It will be very hectic. So this is the reason you need an ND filter, especially for videography, because you can work with fixed ND filters for photography. I will also tell you in a minute why you need it for photography, but for videography, variable ND filter is very essential, and every filmmaker, beginner, expert, any level, you need this. So this is a variable ND filter where you can change the intensity of light going into the sensor. So let me show. See, you can see, I hope you can see, it's now at the minimum intensity and a lot of light passes through it. Now I will change the intensity and slowly you will see it becomes very opaque. So now you can see it's almost totally black and a very less amount of light now goes through it. So you can basically control the amount of light entering into it. So this can be very handy in videography, because you know, nailing the exposure is very much important, because once you get things overexposed or very much underexposed, it becomes a headache in post to actually fix it, because you then introduce noise and other type of problems in your video. So there are many expensive ND filters also, like the Polar Pro Peter McKinnon version, but as a beginner filmmaker, you don't need this. So this is the ND filter. Let me show you. You can see it's from a brand called Qli, and you will not find it online because I just found it in a local store. It's an imported product from Indonesia, I guess, because I searched about it. So you will not find it in Amazon or any other website. So I got this from a local store at a very cheap price actually. It just cost me about 2000 Indian rupees. So there are also budget ND filters from other brands like JJC, KNF Concept. So they are also very good. So if you know the brand, you know the review of it, you have already seen it, you have seen it from many YouTubers, you can just purchase it online. But I would suggest you, if there's a good local store or a market where you get a lot of things imported, then you just go to your local store and ask for it and just test it with your own hand. I have tested it completely before buying it. So basically you can also go for the JJC and KNF concept ND filters. They are also great. I have heard a lot of good things about them. I've read a lot of reviews about them, so you can go for that also. But you can also check out some local store if there's any, because you know, some imported products like this are also very great. But if you're buying any ND filter from a brand about which you don't know, then you just check it with your own hand, because many ND filters produce a lot of tint shift at especially higher stops, so it can just be very much, you know, what to say, you get a lot of green tint or maybe magenta tint, which can just ruin your footage. I didn't get any type of tint shift in this ND filter, rather be it at minimum. Most of the ND filters don't produce any tint shift in the minimum, but when you go to higher stops, it still does not produce any type of tint shift, so which is great at this price range. So I'm quite impressed, and it also doesn't lose that much of quality. It is sharp and I love it. So why do you need it for photography? If you want to take long exposure shots, like suppose waterfall or mostly water bodies, you take long exposure shots of them to get a very smooth and buttery look of water. So in that case, during sunlight, your footage, your basically image will be totally overexposed. So you just need to get a very strong ND filter. So yeah, that's all you need for photography, and most of the cases you can change the shutter speed. If that's not for long exposure, you can change the shutter speed to get the proper exposure. But having an ND filter is a lifesaver for both photography and videography. Now, ND filters come at different filter sizes like lenses. But now you will ask me, I have 3 lenses with different filter sizes. Should I get 3 ND filters? No, you will not have to, you know, take that burden. So basically what you have to do, you have to buy the ND filter of the greatest filter size of lens you have, and then just get step-up rings like this. These rings are pretty much cheap. You can also get it on Amazon, or you can get it from local store. I got it from the same shop. I bought this filter. So you can basically just put on in your lens, and you know, so basically the step-up rings can be used to get this large filter into also small filter sizes lenses. So this ND filter is with filter size 67mm, but I have lenses with 58mm and a prime lens with 49mm. So I basically got this 3 step rings. These 2 step rings I just, you know, attached it, and so basically one step ring is from 62 to 67, another is from 58 to 62. So basically I totally get from 58 to 67, where I can just, you know, let me show you. It will be easier for you. So basically this, now I can put it in the 58mm filter size lens, which I am currently using now, so it can easily go into this. And also, if I need to put this lens into my prime lens, the 50mm f1.8, the Nifty 50, which is of filter size 49mm, then I just have to, you know, put this, tie this one, and now it can go into my prime lens. So 67mm filter size ND filter goes into the 49mm prime lens. Do you want to actually see? Wait. So this is the Nifty 50 lens, the badass, because I really love this lens. So this filter size is 49 mm, and now it can easily so you can see it can easily go into this 49 mm filter size lens, and the ND filter is 67 mm. So these step rings are very much handy. So get these step rings for very cheap, and it will just, serve every purpose for every filter size lenses. Now another reason why you should buy a larger filter size ND filter, that's because most of the ND filters have that vignette effect around it, especially around the edges. So you get a little vignetting when you shoot something. So when you get a larger ND filter in a small filter size lens, so you can actually use the better portion of the filter, the central portion of the filter, and you can just ignore the edges. So it basically produces a better quality. Now it's time to go into direct sunlight and show you the results it produces. So this is what you are seeing with the ND filter in the lens, and it's almost properly exposed, and you can see nothing is that much overexposed. Yeah, some parts can be overexposed, but no, it's almost properly exposed. So if I just remove the ND filter, so you can just see what it looks like. You can just see everything is overexposed. Nothing is properly exposed. Literally everything is overexposed. It's at 24 frames per second, 1/50th of a shutter speed, and f4 aperture. So you can see everything gets overexposed during direct sunlight, proper daytime. I will just put the ND filter because it looks horrible, and I kind of have that horror vibe, so I don't want to get scared, and I don't want you also to get scared. Yeah, so yeah, now you can see the results with the ND filter and without the ND filter. You have already seen it, how it looks like, what's the difference. There's a lot of difference. Now let me show you the minimum and maximum of the ND filter. So with the minimum, it kind of looks like this, which is still better than having not an ND filter. This is the minimum, and then when I go towards the max, you can see maybe this is very nicely exposed, and you can see how much dark it gets, and now it's almost totally black. So I guess this is okay. So you see the difference, right? How much difference it makes actually with the ND filter and without the ND filter. So this is the reason why you need to have an ND filter. It's a must for a beginner, for intermediate, for a pro, and a filmmaker. So I hope you liked the results and liked this video, and if you did, then don't forget to hit the like button. And if you're not yet subscribed to my channel, then what are you waiting for, dear? Subscribe it right now. So that's it for today's video. See ya.